blue for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hello, I'm Ellie, and today I'll be chatting with Ximena, where we will talk about Mexican sustainable fashion. I am super excited since this is a very unique perspective on how clothing tells a story across different communities and how we can all be more mindful of the way that we dress. Again, it's a super important topic, so we'll be discussing how fashion serves as a global language, how we can listen to what's truly important in the industry, and actionable steps and ways we can embrace sustainability in the fashion industry and in our everyday lives. And if you're new here to Susty Talks, this is a community-centered podcast that is basically sparking genuine conversations about ethical fashion, sustainable change, and intersectional solutions. I hope it becomes your online space where it drives positive change in your life and empowers action by making sustainability more accessible and relevant in our everyday normal lives. And this is all self-funded. If you want to support my efforts, I have an eBay and a Depop account. If you want to help me rehome clothing and just love vintage pieces, this is a perfect place for you to support me. Also, I'm crafting a Mexican artisanal denim collection that will be out, fingers crossed, in October. So yes, I'm super excited to have that be released. It's basically challenging the mainstream narratives in the fashion world. But without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Yay! I'm super happy to have our guest. If you want to feel free to introduce yourself and just tell anything that you want the listeners to know about you, please go for it. I'm super excited. Yay!
Awesome. I'm really excited too. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for this space, first of all. My name is Ximena. I live in Mexico and I'm really excited about, getting people from around the world and especially people in Mexico itself to be closer to our industry, to be closer to our fashion world, because I believe there's a lot of creativity here in Mexico that's just waiting for an opportunity to share, like the things that they have to offer, like all these creatives in Mexico and Mexico City and the country in general, I believe are seeking, for the next step for their brands. And I'm really excited about being someone that can share this talent with the world, and connecting that with sustainable fashion for me is really exciting because I do believe that we can consume responsibly while also supporting local artists. And I think that's a very important thing to do when we want, if we want sustainable fashion to be something, to be high, to be bigger, to be stronger, we need to focus right on what's made by the people for the people rather than by the big corporations and by, like in big numbers. So for me, I would say that that's who I am right now. That's the way my life in sustainable fashion has been shifting. So if you remember me by anything, it's that I love Mexican fashion and that I want to bring it to the world so that everyone can know how much talent there is in here. And yeah,
Oh, that's
well, I
so
do many things.
beautiful. That's so
Thank
beautiful. I
you.
love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you so much. It's a dress. It's I'll get
A
up in a moment
dress.
actually. It's like a really short dress. It's all the way
So
like here.
cute. I love it.
Thank you. It was my mom's, and then I stole her from her wardrobe.
I love it.
Thank you so
I love
much. And I love it.
it.
And something about that I also wanted to say about my introduction is that I want to explore, Mexican fashion, both from indigenous work as well as, like the more contemporary pieces that are coming up right now, and kind of like work
Mhm.
towards having a more comprehensive knowledge and understanding of what the Mexican fashion industry is right now, which is very diverse and very, like, it's so fun, like you can find many things, and I really wanna explore that with people, and I wanna be known for that. So yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So you're interested in like Mexican traditional clothing and then mixing that with contemporary fashion, correct? And like exploring those dimensions of how they work together.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's so much fun. I think because Mexico has such a big textile like industry and a long textile history that I really would love to, bring those topics all the way to the front, so that people
Mm.
understand that the way we dress here in Mexico and the way we consume in Mexico is all related, to the way we were raised, in our different aspects of our culture. I think it's really important to understand that culture influences everything, and the culture isn't always like, the indigenous work, but that there's many aspects to it that we can all like really enjoy and find, a space within culture that really resonates with us. Because here in Mexico, I feel like, well, that's something to talk about later on in the podcast, but I feel like identities in Mexico are very different than they are in the US. And sometimes it feels like it's either you're indigenous or you're not. And if you're not, then what the hell are you? I don't know. Because we don't have,
Yeah.
like things that people in the US have, like there's people who say Asian American or, like a Black American. And there are very specific identities that people can't like connect with, but we don't have that here. And I think that through clothes we can actually work things out like that. So that's part of what I'm trying to do right now with my platforms and what I'm trying to explore.
Nice. And you're a student, right? You're busy. You work and you go to school.
Yes, I do. Study. I am studying for a master's degree in fashion marketing,
Hell yeah.
and
Educated
I am
queen.
sorry.
I said educated queen.
I am a nerd. I am a big, big nerd. I've always been. I have a bachelor's in international relations, so I wanted to bring it all together. Like my love for the industry and my understanding of the world, which I feel is something that sometimes can be missing in this industry. Like people get in it because they want to be like super creative and they want to be like artists, which is really fun, and I love that. And I love that myself. I do that myself, but I also feel like there's a lot to explore from the academic perspective about fashion, especially in Mexico. We don't have that, we don't have like fashion studies.
Oh, you
So when
don't?
I got into my master, we do have fashion studies, but it's mostly for design. And
Oh.
I feel like the business part of it is really lost somewhere. I don't know where it is, but uh, for fashion schools in Mexico, and I have friends from fashion school that say, I don't know how to run a business. I know how to make clothes, but I don't know how to run a business. I don't know. I didn't know that we have like I don't know how to say it in English, but we have like it's called like associations
Yeah.
of say people who are dedicated to the textile industry. They're like professional associations that you can sign into, and that you have like it's not like a club, but like they support
Mhm.
each other. And there are designers who come out of school who have no idea about these things that could benefit them. So for me,
Huh.
getting into a master's degree was important because I wanted to understand it, like this industry, from a more structured view perspective. So
Mhm.
yeah, I just study and I work, but my work is not related to this at all. Like I just work because I kind of need to. But I'm working towards actually, getting a job in the industry, hopefully soon. But yes, I think not right now my studies are the most focused on fashion.
Mhm. Yeah, I think every little step counts. Like, I know that schools often like give you courses and you're like, what am I paying for? So it's just a journey. And honestly, I feel like what you're pursuing is incredibly unique and powerful. And I think it's a matter of using those associations or networks or tapping into it is a better word, tapping into the existing industry and seeing how to go about it, even though there's like some weaknesses because again, struggling with businesses struggling to know how to like move forward. It seems to be a common thing. I'm always so hopeful that we can find our space and opportunity. I think more and more people trying to enter into like cultural work or sustainable work is really important. And I feel like if we're all coming together to do that, there's going to be more opportunities, more let's say businesses emerging. So hopefully things start to work out and fall into place. For right now, it's like a hustle. So yeah, I'm super excited that you're taking the time out of a Saturday to talk to me. It's like 12 and she's on here, so yay. But I'm also curious that you mentioned that you're in Mexico City, right? Um,
Yes.
can you mention what it's like to work towards cultural movements? You've talked about this in your work. And how do you think people can navigate dressing themselves in the world? Is there any, shifts or things that you would want to mention in your journey so far of how to navigate, sustainability, culture, and fashion?
Yes, of course. I'm not from Mexico City. I'm from a town called Acapulco, which is a
Oh,
beach
okay.
city, a beautiful one. Everyone should visit, by the way. But it's a very touristic place, but it's also like, I live by the beach my entire life. So for me, like these really short dresses and like short shorts, skirts, everything related to being like really free and being able to stand the heat. That's what I used to wear, like I used to be so comfortable in those clothes, and I still am. I feel like that's where I truly am me, like in the short dresses and the like really fresh clothes. So when I moved to Mexico City, no, it's fine. I am based in Mexico City. When I moved here, which has been, I think, for at least 7 years now, I realized obviously how different things are when it comes to clothing. Here it's way colder, it's way drier, it's way the people are more conservative, obviously, because you're not used to seeing like really short shorts or short skirts. Everyone's dressed more modestly because it's such a big city and
Mhm.
people go to work and it's always busy. You can always be wearing like the skimpy little skirts or like the big, like call it like the heels. I don't know if skimpy
The
is a bad
heels.
word, but
Huh?
I don't know if skimpy is a bad word per se. Like I'm not trying to slut shame anyone, but
Sexy.
like
Sexy
sexy, right?
heels.
Yes, 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 yes. I just said it and then I realized like what the hell am
That's fine.
I? But yeah, like when I got here and I realized that things were so different when it came to the way people dress, I started exploring more about it because I thought, how can I stay true to myself while also obviously adapting to this new place? Because at the end of the day, I have to, right? Like the weather is so different, everything's different. So I think that was one of the first um, things that I noticed when I came here, and one of the first things that made me realize how intertwined culture is with the way we express ourselves through clothes. For
Mhm.
me, a very like prominent, what do you call it, like a V-shaped neck. For me, that's not something that's too revealing. That's just something that you wear because you're like hot in the weather, in Acapulco.
Oh.
But coming here and people being like, "Oh, that's too like too open. What are you doing?" Not in a slut shaming way, but like in a different perspective, kind of way, different culture kind of way. It made me like start thinking of how we can work, with our identities to express
Mhm.
ourselves while also, obviously always staying well safe, staying in like being able to fit in a way because we all want to be a part of something, right? We don't want to come to a new city and not have like a place where you can feel nice, where you can feel comfortable. So I think being in Mexico City has allowed me to look at um how do you call it, like dressing and culture in a way that's more, I would say, like that's more clear because here you can tell when like here people are very expressive with the way they dress, right? It's either you can tell when someone is like alt, you can tell when someone is like more boho, you can tell when someone is
Mhm.
like very TikTok trendy, people really take care of that here. So when I realized that, what I did was, think what, I don't even know how to explain it, but how do you go about dressing in a city that's so open yet so conservative at the same time? And when I started thinking, okay, but dressing isn't always what you should wear, like the trends. Dressing is more about what makes you feel comfortable while still expressing who you are. And I think that's what really Mexico City has made me do. Like, how can I incorporate my own personality, which is very like colorful and it's very, I love the city. I feel like, sorry, I love the beach. So I love this like really, like I said, these fresh clothes that are always like not tiny, but really just chill, while also looking at this city that's where I have to be a professional too because I work. So I feel like realizing that there are many different culture groups in Mexico City has helped me understand that I can also create one on my own, for myself, and that I don't need to dress a certain way, nor does the weather define the way I dress anymore. Because for me in Acapulco, I feel like I used to dress the way I used to dress because obviously it was really hot. Like it's a really hot place, so you can always like wear what do you call it like pants, or you can always wear like really thick clothing. And for me here in Mexico City, you have so many weathers. Like in a single day, it could be really hot, it could be really cold, it could rain, and it's
Oh
insane.
God,
It's crazy
that
here. Like
does
you have to.
not sound fun. What's
It's
happening over there?
it's a weird place. But like if you go to a park or to go to the Chapultepec Zoo, which is a very like really big zoo, and it's full of like beautiful trees and everything, you can wear like this mini dress that I'm wearing. You have to wear like closed shoes because you're gonna walk a lot, and you also have to bring like a jacket with you because you don't know at what time it might be like really cold out of a sudden. And then you can even bring an umbrella if you want, and you will probably use it. It's not always like that, but it's a complex place. So for me, working in fashion and starting to get closer to fashion has taught me here in Mexico City that it's so important to have like a defined visual identity. Like it's important, and it's also easy. Like you can wear whatever, sorry, however you want, and it's nothing's gonna happen. No one's gonna really judge you. So for the way, wait, what is it like?
I'm also curious. Yeah, no worries. That's awesome. I totally feel what you're saying that you see how everyone's kind of like trying to fit in through a certain like city aesthetic, and then you come from this more like beach, fun, like flowy vibe, which may be seen as like, oh, like what is she doing? Like it may be a little bit too provocative, like what's going on here? But you're just simply vibing. Like this is how you were raised. And
Yeah.
then there's also that like cultural element, like can I find my own space here given I love, cultural sustainable fashion. And it's just like navigating. So I'm kind of curious how um you've taken inspiration from others to be brave or courageous. Is there any designers, any orgs that inspire you to be more of yourself, to figure out more of your style in midst of, Mexico City?
Yes, of course. I feel like for the past at least 5 years, the fashion scene in Mexico has changed dramatically. I feel like Mexico in general is a very conservative country. It's fun. I feel like you can feel relatively free. It's not very, in not every place is very like restrictive. At least here in Mexico City, like I said, you can do pretty much whatever you want. But I feel like lately there have been so many amazing, like content creators that have helped break, the boundaries of what it's supposed to be fashionable or correct in a way. And I can think of a couple. I'm really bad with names, but I know that there are many people here in Mexico City, in the north of Mexico, in different areas of the country, that have, begun this movement of just wearing whatever you want. Like, Benulus in
I
like
love
on
her. I
Instagram.
love
Well, she
her.
lives in the US, right? I love her. I love her. She's Mexican. She's from north, and I feel like she's definitely more she leans more towards her US audience, but I feel like she is the kind of content creator that has been growing in Mexico, like locally, like people
Mhm.
who are daring to be more expressive with the way they dress. So I feel like thinking about like globalization, I feel like that's where this whole thing comes in, like that we're able to look at the way other people dress around the world has really influenced us in Mexico. At least I would say in Mexico City, so that we can explore different styles, different aesthetics, different ways of expressing ourselves, because I feel like less than 5 years ago, things were so different. Like I remember when I started wearing colored eyeliner, it was like a weird thing. Like people were like, "Wow, you're a trailblazer," right? And I was like, "They've been doing this around the world for years. Did you guys didn't catch up?" But I did. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Mhm.
used to be way more closed, and people weren't as exposed to I don't want to say crazier, but like more extroverted ways of dressing. And now it's so normal to see like like it might be a walking micro trend, but it's still like, you know, there are people who dare, you know, to dress like that when it's like the skirt over the pants and then like the sports jersey, you know, something that, like I said, 5 years ago you wouldn't have seen, or you would have think like you would have thought like that's a little like weird, you know. So I feel like Mexico City has been influenced by globalization and in fashion that way, you know, because we're so open to other cultures through the internet, that I feel it has had a really positive impact in the way we look at ourselves as Mexicans, or at least in
Mhm.
Mexico City. I don't want to say like Mexicans broadly, because there are so many identities here in this country, and it's
Yeah.
everything so different. But generally speaking, I feel like Mexico and younger Mexicans have become more open with the way they dress, because we're more exposed to different styles through the internet.
Mm.
So I feel like that's
Yeah, I wanna add on. You just reminded me how I was raised by Mexican parents. Um they were both in Mexico up until their 20s, and then they moved to the United States for this like quote unquote American dream or whatever. And they are very much conformists. And again, it's not to generalize how people are, but what I've seen from my parents is they have stuck to what their parents told them. They stick to just watching the news. They stick to talking to friends and family, and they dress and they conform so they can be loved and respected by their family, their friends, and their workplace. And that's just been their life, ruled by tradition, ruled by culture, and a very strict, very in the box sort of sense. And when I
right.
started helping just like others, they're like, but do you know them? Like, are they safe? I'm like, no, I don't really know these people that I'm engaging with because I used to volunteer at all sorts of places. And they're like, Mija, are you okay? But there's just like a lot of set of like values of like, you should just like prioritize your family as well, or you should just prioritize the people that you know. And they like stick together, very tight knit family that I have. And when you like step out, even as general as helping someone else in a very small way, it's like, oh, okay, like, what are you doing? And they ask you questions. And I feel like when you go to something as external as fashion, it really catches your eye even more because what I experience is my parents would be like, "Why are you wearing that dress? Like, why are you wearing the artisanal stuff like Mija? Like, that's for grandmas or like for special moments." And I'm like, "Oh, I kind of like
Yeah.
it." And so it's very interesting how you have to have a lot of courage in midst of like conformity of tradition, but I truly resonate. Like for me, speaking on my behalf, TikTok, social media, YouTube, those are all tools that I've used to like grow more confident in my beliefs and values and like step away from what my parents were raised with and what has been taught as like normal. If I hadn't been exposed to like TikTok, I also wouldn't have known that there's so many people so similar to me that they're all going through similar struggles of like how can I dress authentically or oh my gosh, I'm anxious because I don't look the part in a conference or something. Like social media really breaks open all these sort of like things that we've kept behind the door. And I feel like fashion now as we walk down a literal street. We're like, oh my God, like she's so cool and she's brave to do this. Like maybe I can do this. Maybe not everything I see on social media is just on social media. Like people are actually living this life in real life. Like they're, exploring and being themselves and breaking the rules or like feeling the same as me. Like maybe I can do this in real life too. So that's been my journey as a Mexican American in like fashion, but more in an American sense. But no, it's really great to see this shift. I'm super excited, like what will happen. Um, but yeah, I wonder about you personally, like how do you see the world speaking through clothing? Is there anything that you're particularly listening to within the fashion industry as you do your important work or as you like continue to, ask questions and like to adapt and navigate the world around you?
Yes, I think it really connects with the what we were talking about before this question, because what I see right now and that makes me very hopeful. First of all, I used to when it's something that I really regret because I used to make a lot of content about sustainable fashion and then I self-sabotaged and I
I
stopped.
do that all the time, girl. It's been 5 years
Right.
in the making.
Uh, right. I know it's been like five for me too, and then it comes and goes. But there was a time when I was very like into it, and it opened many doors for me, and I got to give conferences, and most of them were for college students, and it made me very happy and hopeful to see that there's so much interest in how we can be more authentic with our clothes and the way we express ourselves through them while also staying, respectful towards nature and people. I feel like that's a big shift here in Mexico. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people who still don't care, and that's just how the world is, right? But when I used to give these conferences, I could see the interest and I could see, like the excitement, like, oh, I really want to change the world with my clothes, and I really want to be me. And I feel like that's how that's how I believe that the world speaks through the way we dress. Like when we start actually listening beyond what's supposed to be, like the trends or what's established, that's when the word really gets to like show, like all the beautiful colors of all the different cultures around the world. I feel like here in Mexico, there has been a surge of people, of young people who are more interested in artisanal work because they no longer see it, like you said, for their grandmas or for like just indigenous people, or, because there used to be shame around
Mhm.
these things, like people would really look at it as either like a souvenir from a like touristic place or something that only indigenous people wore because it's not, I'm gonna say, like it's not city-ish enough, it's not like formal enough. But I feel like this perspective has changed a lot, and now I see younger people and people in my generation and even older people who are also catching up, exploring all these beautiful things that Mexico has to offer rather than always trying to be, like, I'm gonna say like American, because the thing about Mexico is that it's so influenced by the US that sometimes people get lost, in trying to look like, I don't even know, white people, I don't know, like Americans. And it's
Yeah,
not a bad thing because that's at the end of the day, that's our context. We are very close to the US, But I feel like so many people have been working towards, being like looking beyond, US, like the US cultural hegemonic situation thing, which is really interesting. But it's something that happens here in Mexico, especially if you're in North Mexico. There are people in North Mexico who say, I don't really identify with people in Center or South Mexico. I like the north of Mexico. It's its own world that's way closer to the border into the US than it is to Mexico in the center, like Mexico City, or even the south, all the way to Yucatan, where you can find all the Maya cultures. And so for me, I feel like that's how I can see, that the how do you put it, like that, I don't know how to explain it. Give me a second. Like through all these shifts in perspectives is how I see that the world is speaking to us, that we're actually starting to listen, to think like, oh wait, that's not the only way we can do things. Not the,
Mhm.
like the way the US does things is not the only way. Like what are the Desi girls doing, So maximalism
I
becomes a
love
thing,
that.
right?
I
You
love
know how
that.
minimalism is
I
such a thing right now. I would say, and I would credit them totally, like these beautiful brown women from Pakistan, from India, from all these places. They have influenced culture through social media because I feel like, at least for me, because I love them, I always get content from brown women from these beautiful countries, and that has opened my eyes, and like I started to think like I love that. I love maximalism, and I've always been someone that loves accessories, and you start feeling inspired by other places, not from like cultural appropriation, but
Mhm.
from actual respect and admiration, and actually feeling like it resonates with you, like maybe you're not gonna wear a dupatta or you're not gonna wear a lehenga, but you're gonna wear like a long skirt because you have seen the way they dress and you think, oh, that's beautiful, that's not
Mhm.
the way people dress here. And I'm starting to, like you start to really explore other perspectives, like there are many people here in Mexico that love K-pop, say, and they get inspired by Korean fashion. I feel like that's the way the world has been speaking to us. Like because we have so many new visions of fashion and self-expression that we're able to access to through social media, that these generations and the younger ones are starting to realize that there are many more ways in which they can do things. And a lot of people have also started to realize that it's also okay to look like to ourselves, to Mexico, to the things we were taught, and how can we challenge that while also staying, like true to who we were raised to be at the end of the day, right? Like for me, my grandma has always worn like this, like a huipil, that's like a dress like this one, but
Yeah.
longer. And I was used to looking at her like that, and she still wears them most of the time on like longer skirts. And like I started getting more interested in huipiles because of her. And now for me, it's just something that I wear. It's not like cultural. It's I'm gonna like say it very clearly because I'm not meaning like I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It is cultural wear, definitely, but it's
Hmm.
not anymore like the thing that you would wear for a very specific occasion, like maybe like a in your school that they made like this cultural theme like events kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's not it anymore. You can step out of your home with a huipil as a young woman, like a modern young woman, to put it in a way, and it's still something that it's becoming more normal, and I love that because artisanal work by indigenous people has always been um like discredited. It has always been stolen. It has always been taken as in like by people who are trying to give a voice to these people while also stealing from them, trying to get the credit for things that they don't do. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's also a really big shift in the way we have been what do you call it, like connecting with our clothes, that we now care more about where they actually come from. Like I see so many people that want a certain look that will not go to Zara, they will not go to H&M, they will not go to these places. They will look for the source. How can I buy an indigenous authentic piece, how can I invest in that? Because we have also begun to understand that investing in clothes is worth so much more, like taking a little time to save up some money so that you can buy a quality piece instead of buying many things, with the same money and that are not gonna last enough. I feel like that's how the world has begun, to speak to everyone, and how we have begun to understand that and express it to the way we dress. I feel like in Mexico, the biggest change that I've seen so far is exactly that, the way we have been, those who are not indigenous have been stepping back to actually give indigenous voices, like the platforms to, there's a lot of things to change still. Obviously, there are many things that could be better, but I feel like the conversations are more fluid now. And I find that very inspiring and very exciting because I feel like when we allow ourselves to listen, then we will realize that in order to be who we are or who we want to be, we need to understand, like the world first. Because I feel like sometimes when it comes to style, personal style, people like go from the inside out. Like, who do I want to be? Who do I want people to perceive me as? But I feel like if you allow yourself to think, okay, where am I? Who do I want to be in this context? Like in this community, who do I want to resonate with? What excites me, that I can be a part of? That's when that I feel like that's a big shift that I have seen lately that has changed, in the way people dress. And that's where I feel like most of the courage to dress differently has come from. Like, how can I be a part of something bigger while staying true to myself? And I would say that's something that in the Mexican fashion industry is shifting with these newer generations. I have had the opportunity to talk to, like older people who are very professional and like really well established in the industry. And I can see that they still struggle a little bit with like thinking, like, wait, but like sustainability, that's a trend, right? But it's not. It's not, definitely not. And I feel like
I
um
just want to
the,
add that
yeah, please.
current fashion designers, I feel like, are very emerged within this Western colonial mindset that is entrenched in the fashion industry. I think not only Americans, but Europeans and so many different people across the world believe fashion should be Western fashion. It's the things that we find in the mall. It's like what Shein offers. It's very cheap things that have no artistry. It doesn't last very long, and people don't want to hold on to it. And I actually talked about this issue with Poppy Martinez in my last podcast episode and just figuring out how we can step away from that colonial mindset within the fashion industry that's often passed down in academia and in schools and jobs. You literally have to resist in your own subtle way and navigate those questions of like, who am I? But also like, I'm surrounded by all this beauty, all these artisans, all these indigenous cultures. How can I respect them? And I love what you said. It's like, okay, I can ask myself these questions like, who am I? But like, we can't ignore what's in front of us. Like, we have to understand the context. We have to understand the environment, especially in Mexico, when there's so many beautiful artisans that need to be supported. I was actually listening to an artisan who came to visit in Chicago at a workshop. She was teaching us her native embroidery skills that generations after generations have, taught their daughters how to do this. And she was explaining that a lot of mothers and daughters are not passing this skill down because they have to move from their, small communities in Mexico, move to wherever they can find a job. Some often enough it's in United States, and then they don't continue passing on these very ancestral artisanal skills and it's lost basically forever. I mean, there's still a chance that they can continue passing it down if they have any free time during the weekends or in the evenings. But when you're in survival mode and you have to find a job and you need to feed your family, sometimes some skills don't make it to the table. They don't get passed down. So there's very real consequences if we don't grapple with all of what you've said, which is super, super important. Like at the end of the day, we will lose so much beauty, so much art, but also so many ancestral knowledge and wisdom that could actually really benefit us in the long term because like we don't need fast fashion. Like we don't need to continue to
We
make more and
don't.
more of this stuff. So I truly do think, yeah, I agree. The environmental, how do I say this? The environmental space that you're in, not only like planetary or like sustainably, but like anthropologically, like how are you affecting your society? How are you affecting the culture in terms of like values and norms and like what you're supporting on an everyday basis? And I think those are questions and things that we will have to continue grappling with, but it is something that we all have to take up. Like as an American, I have a lot of Western ideology implemented in my head. I'm like, sometimes I pass on an idea. I'm like, I don't think this is helping me or the industry, but I'm so entrenched in it. So there's a lot of unlearning. And I love when people question things. I think that's the secret to like really not only tripping your mind up, but tripping up like how do we function on an everyday basis as people and finding more beauty in like the things that we wear because it may sound so simple, but no, like these are very intense things that we have to deal with. Like, yeah, but I like to I like to focus on the positive though. Like with Venus, like we can wear them out. Like, who cares if
Yes,
someone thinks it's
exactly.
weird? Like, I'm gonna wear it. My mom even has thought I was weird wearing like artisanal stuff, and I just have to explain that it's cute and that I want to support it. And she's come around, like she helps me find stuff. Um, I was in a flea market the other day, or not the other day, like 2 years ago, unfortunately. I wanted to be the other day. Ago, I was in Mexico and we were at a like flea market and I actually like uploaded a reel about it yesterday. But I told her these artisanal, quote unquote,
Oh, I
artisanal
saw it.
things are not that artisanal, like they're machine made. And then she's like, wait, really? I'm like, you don't know what's artisanal Mexican fashion? She's like, no, I don't know. So I feel like a lot of just basic knowledge has been lost. And you would assume that a lot of people know like what's truly cultural or truly artisanal or handmade from their own, like area of their city and their country, but
Yes,
it's been getting lost more and more and more. So,
definitely. Actually, when I saw your reel, because I actually commented, someone commented and I
oh,
commented back.
oh,
I defended it because, like, for me, there are two things that might be happening here. Like, like there's so many tourists that people need to sell, like they need the money. So they go for the made in China things. I remember one time I wanted to buy like an embroidered, what do you call it, like a wallet. And I
Mhm.
saw it and thought it was really cute. And I grabbed it and it said made in China. Like it was not. it was not at all authentic, and I was like, what's going on? Like they were selling it, in like a very touristic area here in Mexico City. It's called Paseo de la Reforma, and you have a lot of tourists there, and you just walk around. There's not much to do, but pretty.
Mhm.
And they had like this, like when people set their little markets on the floor, like they spread out like a sabana or something, and then they put things and they sell them there. And I wanted it, but I saw that and I thought, what the hell? And then I went on a trip to Thailand and I saw the same wallet, and it also said obviously made in China,
Oh,
and they were
wow.
selling it as if it was some kind of like indigenous work from there, and it was like it blew my mind, and that's one of the like it just blew my mind. Like there are so many wonderful artisans in Mexico and in Thailand, of course, that could be like they could be taking up these spaces to sell their stuff instead that we have all these people that maybe come from an economic need to sell, and they just need to sell. Like it's not their fault necessarily, but it is mind-blowing because as a tourist you're not buying something authentic even though you feel like you're helping someone or like local economy, but you're not. And at the same time, well, you understand like these people, like the sellers, they need product to sell, and if it's cheaper than artisanal made clothes, then that's what works for them, right? But
Mhm.
I feel like that really blew my mind. And it also connects with what you said, that we don't know our own cultures. We don't know our textile history. We don't know anything. I've had people come up to me like, oh, but the Mexican industry, like the fashion industry is so young, right? It started like what, like 20 years ago? Like, no, we've been creating clothes for over 100 years. The Mexican industry is a really strong one. We have factories that work from the pattern making to the finished product. Like you don't always find that in many places. Like these factories that can do everything, but and these are factories that come, like from families that have been passed down for generations. So we have a lot of textile history, both from the artisanal and the indigenous part of Mexico, and also the more industrial part of Mexico. So when people don't even know something like that, they don't know that clothes get made in Mexico and they're really high quality, and that are even like really big brands. If I remember correctly, it was Birkenstock that manufactures their shoes here, because we have a very strong um, like leather industry, a very
Mhm.
strong also like shoe industry. We have many strong industries that are also getting really affected by all these fast fashion products and like the cheaply made things. I'm not gonna say, because so many people say like the Chinese things. I don't count that. Like it's not the Chinese, it's the badly made things. They come from China? Most of them they do, but that doesn't mean you have to like. I also try to work with that, like this perceptions that we have about other cultures. Like that's also really important, because then if you think everything Chinese is bad, then you won't be able to explore the beautiful Chinese work that you can find, or the beautiful uh, fashion, what do you call it, like brands, to put it in a way, that are out there. But that's another topic. But what I was saying is that we have no idea what Mexico is capable of when it comes to textiles. And so many people think, when they think of Mexican fashion, they think it's only like the indigenous work, and it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. That's fine. Not everyone resonates with the style. That's okay. But I feel like right now, there are so many emerging designers that are not being able to really make it, because people don't even know that they can buy quality clothes here in Mexico. So what you're saying is really important. We don't know what's going on in our own country, and we wanna. And I say we, I don't, but like we as in Mexicans in general, we want to dress like Europeans. We want to dress like Americans. We want to be like like very Western, and that's okay because we're also Western people at the end of the day. But I feel like sometimes it comes from a place of total ignorance of what is going on in your own country, that comes from a place of the word malinchismo, like that you don't feel like. Here in Mexico is so hard to have people actually feel proud about being Mexican outside of the Olympic Games, or like the World Cup. So for me, I feel like that's a really important part of what I'm trying to do right now, like trying to get people closer to what's actually going on in Mexico, and what we can do to support, our emerging designers and artists and everything. Because there's also this perception that emerging designers are always like extremely expensive. And while it is true in a way, there are also other designers that offer like a different price range. and that I feel like many people don't know because they don't want to look at Mexican fashion because they're still stuck in like really old ideas of what it's supposed to be. And I feel like at the end of the day, when we talk about our local, like industries, positive things happen, Like I have so many friends that were like, "Oh, I didn't know I could get that here. I thought I had to order it. I had to buy it from like an American brand. I had to buy it from Shein." And I'm like, "Don't buy there. Like you don't need that. You can find. Let me help you find it. In a local place, and more often than not, you will find it. Like that style because Mexico has such a strong capacity to create many styles and many things. So I feel like what you said is really important that we have to know what we have here, so that we can understand how we can work with it, so that we can also find an identity because I feel like Mexico doesn't really have it has many little identities, but it's really hard to find yourself like saying, um, oh, I'm Mexican, yes, but like what does that mean to you? If you're like I
Mhm.
said earlier, like if you're from the north of Mexico, then it means an entirely different thing that if you're from the south, and that's fine, but I feel like we are so lost. And this is for this like this is Spain to blame. This is a colonial thing, like we're still carrying with that confusion and that shame, to put it in a way, to not really being sure of who we are, where we're standing, so that we feel like we have to look at other places to know, kind of like how we should dress and how we
Mhm.
should consume and how we should just look, and I feel like being working towards breaking this colonial ideas that so many people still carry. It's really hard, but it's definitely something that I feel like that is more talked about in the younger generations, which is also very fun and awesome because you can finally feel like, oh, there's hope, in the future that there will be at least a portion of this society that will be more and more and more conscious of the way they can, like free themselves from all this mental shackles, and also that they're going to, by freeing themselves, they're going to look at alternatives, and their alternatives are waiting. We're already, in the industry, we're ready, like, come by, but it's all about educating the consumer too. And I feel like it's hard, but it's fun. And it's gonna work. I feel like I'm really hopeful. Like you said, I'm also always thinking about the positive things, and that's also my approach to sustainable fashion. I feel like for a time it used to be like very into shaming. Like if you buy Shein, you're a bad person, and which is not necessarily true. Like you're not making a positive impact, but that doesn't make you as an individual, like a bad person. You know. So I feel like uh, switching from always shaming people because they buy fast fashion to making people feel curious and excited about everything else, I feel like that's the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's on a journey. And I feel like you said, sometimes we're just faced with a lot of challenges of loving where we're from or our own authenticity, our own culture based on dominant external forces that just have made us feel inferior or not enough. And we have to then meet their levels of conformity or aesthetics or values. But I feel like I don't know. I'm a true Mexican loyalist. If I could be in Mexico right now, I'd be there instead of America. That's just me. Or United States, I mean. Um, maybe I should admit that. Maybe I should admit that. Maybe
That's
I think
fine.
I need to edit it out. But
Fine,
I
we
said
get it.
America, and it reminded me of the Gulf of America and the Gulf of Mexico thing.
Right,
Let
that's the
me.
same.
I've been
You-
uh, I've been mind conformed. But
No, it's fine
I'm
because I
gonna.
feel like it's important, but I feel like in Mexico we're also very like clear about that. Like we don't necessarily agree, but it's something like we know you say America and that's fine. Like it's not
It's such a
it
shame because Mexico is part of America, but then the United States
is.
is like, no, we're America. I'm like,
We are America. And
okay,
it's like
no
there's
way.
an
I have to like
entire
erase that. Yeah.
there's an entire continent, just so you know, like you know. So
I
it's
think that just
it's
kind of like sums up your entire point of like those mental shackles that we often are entrenched in. And it's like so subconscious that we're like, wait a minute, what did I just say? Like it was a small mistake, but it just illuminates the small
that's fine.
things that are within the webs of our mind. And it's just like, okay, no, like that statement was not right. Like, let me retract. And I feel like that's just like our humanity. We're imperfect, but like I'm always hopeful we can, relearn what is true and right for us, to have a better life, not only, for ourselves, but like for everyone, no matter where we're from. So I guess on a practical level, what are some tips that you would provide to someone that wants to practice, sustainable fashion? Maybe they're a beginner, maybe an expert, who knows? But is there anything that you personally would recommend for them?
Yes, I feel like I used to have a podcast too a couple years ago, and I used to talk a lot about this. And what worked out for me that people actually came up to me like, "Hey, this really helped me," was telling people that at the end of the day, like you said, first of all, this is a journey. There is no rush in, being like the perfect saucy person. That doesn't exist, like it's just you're always working towards being better, but you can be perfect about it. So first of all, you have to work with what you have in front of you. If I remember when I lived in Acapulco, there were many thrift stores there, and I really wanted thrift back then, but I couldn't. So what I did was I started trying, I tried to buy less from fast fashion. Like if I needed something, I used to think like, okay, I don't need to buy this. Maybe I do have something at home, because all you could find there was basically like fast fashion, like just fashion, like the not so fast, but still manufactured in big quantities kind of fashion. But I feel like that's where you begin, like understanding where you're standing, but also not feeling like you're bound to that. Like, okay, I don't have any thrift stores, but what can I do? Like maybe I can rewear what I already have. I can look at things from a different perspective. Like maybe this shirt I won't wear for college anymore because I've worn it so many times for it, but I can wear it for, I don't know, for like going out with my friends, or maybe I can wear it for work, or you know what I'm trying to say, like trying to
Hmm.
shift things with what's already in front of you, and like in the way you can find excitement, in the things that you already have, like in your own wardrobe. For me, that's something that really changed my life. Like I used to be like, oh, I'm going out next Sunday, I need something new because I already worn everything. And that was not
Hmm.
true. Like I have so many things that I'm actually trying to sell right now that I look at these things and I'm like, I don't think I even worn this 3 times, it doesn't resonate with me anymore. So I'm trying to give it a new home. But we're so, like, um used to thinking that clothes are basically like you can something you can throw away by the second time you wear it. And I feel like that's where you can begin, like how can I make the best out of what I already have? And if I really don't like it, how can I rehome it in a responsible way? Because donating isn't always, yeah, well, you know that more than anyone else, right? Like
Hmm.
donating is not always it. How can I make it something that becomes also a community building activity? Like how can I exchange clothes with my sisters or with my mom, with my friends? How can I make these topics more normalized? Like for me it has become so normal to say, oh, this is secondhand, and I'm always like really proud, because I found really good clothes secondhand. And I feel like there are still people who are like, what do you say that, like why do you like that, like there's so much shame still around, secondhand clothes. So I feel like making like when you're beginning in this journey, trying to educate yourself and becoming more open to talk about these things is really important. You don't need to buy the expensive eco-friendly fabric that, like that's really important. You don't have to buy into the textile innovation that's really expensive, just so that you can say you're sustainable, because before going all the way there, you need to honor what you already have. And also, I feel like honoring yourself by trying to break away from the things that make you feel shameful, that make you feel uncomfortable, that make you feel like you're not really being you, that you have to conform, to other people's opinions and ideas of what fashion should be. In the podcast, I used to call this like mental outfits. Like, how can you restyle them? Like, if you already think, like, say, when people say you shouldn't wear white because it makes you look bigger, that's a mental outfit that's something that people say here in Mexico a lot. Like,
Oh no, I didn't know that. I was like
yes,
shocked.
oh my God, no,
No, that's
Mexico,
so mean.
fat phobia is another thing in Mexico. But I feel like you hear that a lot, like, oh no, white makes you look fatter, you shouldn't wear that. Like, why is fatter a bad thing? Like, why is white not just a color? Why does it have so much like this weird, like meaning to it. Like you can wear white and you would look beautiful. And I feel like I said in the podcast, I used to call like these mental outfits that we grew up wearing in our heads, like trying to restyle them and think, but white might make me look bigger, but it'll also like brighten my face. It'll also make me feel I don't know, like happier because it's such a bright color, not colored thing that's gonna make me give me a different mood. You know what I'm saying? So all these
Mhm.
little things that are sometimes so hard to get rid of, like like America, saying America instead of the US, these kinds of things working towards, first of all, being compassionate with yourself and others and understanding that this is something that comes from many generations back, being compassionate, and then also being empowered and thinking, okay, this is what I was taught, but I can also change it. I feel like that's a very, like, all this mental um, work is the beginning of actually going towards a sustainable, you know, more sustainable and conscious life. Because I feel like sometimes people think that just because they're buying secondhand, they're being the most sustainable people on earth, which helps, yes, but also if you're buying secondhand, but you're making holes as if you were buying from Shein, like that's not necessarily as sustainable as you would think, because you're also falling into, overconsumption and you're not really getting out of the whole, I don't want to say system because it's really hard to get out of it, but out of this whole
Mhm.
dynamic, which is that I feel like that's what's really damaging us, not thinking that we have to buy and buy and buy and buy and buy, and that's not always the case. I feel like once you're more conscious about these things, that's when you can step onto the next level, which is if you're gonna buy new,
Mhm.
be really conscious about it. Like, what brands are you buying from? If you can only find fast fashion in your area, because like I said, it happened to me, how can you buy more, like, with a better mindset? Like, okay, I'm gonna buy these shoes from H&M, and this happened to me. Like, I needed shoes for work and I could only find in H&M, and I was like, okay, I wish I didn't have to buy here, but I need them for tomorrow. I couldn't go thrifting. I couldn't like have them, from a smaller brand that's gonna take 2 weeks to get here, and I needed them for the next day, right? So I went there and I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy the kind of shoes that I'm gonna wear like a lot until they break because I really like them. And I was very, like, I paid a lot of attention, and I still have these shoes. It's been like 4 years now, and I wear them for work pretty much every day. They're super comfortable. And you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you buy better if you have to buy fast fashion? Then it's maybe it's not the best option, but if it's one of the few options that you have, there's no shame in that. Just be mindful. And if you want to buy, like from emerging designers, well, do that. That's also really cool.
Mhm.
That I feel like when it comes to sustainability, at the end of the day, living in a capitalist world, if you're gonna be into it, at least make sure that your money, you know, speaks your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
I feel like for sustainability and for conscious brands, it is important that we consume as much as we can from them, not in an overconsumption kind of way, but if you're gonna spend your money, I mean, do it there, right? So I feel like in sustainability, money is really important because that's how we show that these things can actually, like, resist the test of time, that actually are gonna last for many years. Because I know that I think the global statistic for how long a fashion brand lasts is 5 years. That
Oh
that's
wow, that's so
that's
little.
nothing. That's nothing. That's so much a little time. And that's because we're not buying from these emerging designers, and they struggle, and maybe they don't find their place in the industry because the people are not really seeking for them because they don't know how to. I've had so many people come up to me be like, how can I buy Mexican fashion? There's so little. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There are new brands coming I would say every week, there are new brands in Mexico being born. For some reason, there's so much love towards fashion in Mexico that people really want to be a part of this industry. And I feel like, once you're there with sustainable fashion, buy local as much as you can, buy consciously when you need to buy fast fashion or not conscious fashion, and just keep spreading the word. That's how I try to go about my. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I hear it. It's not too
Okay.
much.
All right, cool. Because there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard it before, like this car that comes like asking for
Oh.
like colchones, refrigerador. It just happened here.
It's so cute.
That's the most Mexican, as Mexican as it gets.
I love that. That's so cute.
Love it, love
I
it.
want to be in Mexico with you. Give me
What
the
places do you
vibes.
where is your family from? Where do you come?
My
Where you
mom is from Leon, Mexico, and that's where we normally go to visit. And they're like known for their leather
Yes.
industry. So I was raised like going through very artisanal leather shops, and the leather smell is like my childhood smell. Like if you put me on a deathbed, you will literally revive me if you put an artisanal leather shoe in front of me, because I'm like, that's my life right there. That's the smell. You will never replace it with anything else. So it's just core memories has been around like very well crafted goods. Unfortunately, it's like leather, it's like an animal product. I don't support the ethics of that, but like the quality, the craftsmanship, it like has resonated with me my whole life. And that's how actually ended up asking questions of like, how do they make this? Like, how do they learn how to do this? Like, this looks so put together. As a 10-year-old, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And my mom was like, why is she looking at this so much? But I've always loved fashion. So yeah, that's how I actually really got into artisanal stuff. But I really do love all the tips that you've provided. It's honestly a journey. So I feel like we have to take it day by day. And I think how I approach it personally is adopting it with grace and fun. Like I'm literally holding an axolotl to remind me of my love for Mexico and conservation efforts because they're unfortunately, not doing too good because of invasive
Right.
species. I
Well,
have some
thank
stuff
you.
hung up over here. Like I have hearts as a way to remember my, love and compassion because you can become very negative, very hard on yourself and others, and just like fall into pessimism. And I just like try to literally hold on to like what's important. Like, yeah, this is not going in a good route right now. Maybe I'm not in Mexico. Maybe I do feel a bit powerless, but I think the efforts that I do, maybe as simple as one conversation, one cute plushie moment can like make a difference, like uphold more awareness, more reminders of what we should be doing to create change. So I like to have a bit of fun. It's all very logical to be questioning yourselves, exploring your philosophy in life, but like you can have cute emotions, like believe in the positivity of everything and still remember what's, important. So yeah, I really appreciate you. I know you were looking around at your room. Did you want to show us anything?
I was trying to see if I had something here that I could show, but I don't think because I renovated my room. But
You have a
I used
sewing
to
machine.
have
Is that a
like
serger?
it
Is that a sleeve
is. I
serger?
love sewing. That's actually what I wanted to say. Like you said, you grew up with like the Leon leather, which is beautiful. I think the Leon like artisanal work is one of Mexico's biggest pride when it comes to this industry. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful you grew up like that. And for me, it's the sewing machine. And my grandma used to sew, like she was an undocumented immigrant to the US and she worked in clothing factories in Los Angeles. So for me, I think that's what really got me into sustainable fashion, like thinking I'm not just a part of this whole industry as a consumer, but rather, from my grandma who was also part of the supply chain and my mom and her siblings, they used to sell souvenir t-shirts at the beach, in Acapulco. Like clothes have always been there, And when I realized one time that I didn't like what I saw in stores, that's when I fell in love with sewing. Like, what can I do for myself, and what can I do so that it's more sustainable? But yeah, this is a surgery. I wanted to show like because I used to have like a Maya calendar, but I don't have it anymore. It's not here
Oh,
anyway. I have it somewhere else. But yeah, because I also try to remind myself, of the things that I love. I also believe, like you said, that being positive and that through love we can change the world. I feel like love is the most powerful force there is, and sometimes we forget about that. We take it for granted, like it's easier to fall into being hateful because it's just easy. It's easier in a way for some reason, and we think like, oh, love will always be there, but love is something to work on, to work with
mhm.
too. So I really love the name of your blog, like sustainable amor. I think that's beautiful. I think that's
Thank
that's
you.
necessary because you can you can change the world if you don't love it. You can make something better if you don't fall in love with it. And I feel like love is a big part of also, like, I believe for you is like a big part of why I do what I do. I love this world. I love clothes. I love clothes, like in ways I cannot even begin to explain. Because sometimes, and I wrote about it one time, but it's not the same to say I love fashion and this in I love clothes. You know, it's so different. Fashion is a system, fashion is an industry, and I love it. But clothes, without all the pressure, without all the expectations, clothes are just clothes, and they're so noble. And textiles are wonderful. You know, like they are one of, I would say, one of the biggest like proofs of how much love can change the world, because clothes, well, like textiles, they were born out of, and they evolved out of love for ourselves, you know, as humans. Like, what can we, how can we protect ourselves better? How can we protect the ones we love better? How can we, you know, like connect with nature, you know, better with our clothes and our textiles from many thousands of years ago? I feel like love should be in everything that we do, especially us that we're in sustainability and that we care so much. I feel like you cannot do this if you don't love very intensely, like you and I do, I believe. So yeah, and well, yeah, I don't know if you're gonna like cut it here because I'm gonna keep talking. So
No, I love it. I love it. I didn't want to cut you off. But I just had a closing thought that I feel like a lot of us in the fashion industry, whether fashion designers, fashion logistic, operational, supply chain experts, whatever it is, I feel like we all started as maybe children just loving fashion for just the sake of fashion. Maybe we grew up with our Barbies or Bratz dolls or whatever doll we had. We just really loved it. We played with it. We grew to adore it. And as grown-ups, we've continued to explore this field, enter it, become leaders in it. But within the scope of society, within the scope of our economic system, it's been turned into a very evil tool for profit by the hands of very ambitious, greedy, often white men to just sell us items that we don't really need. We don't need fast fashion. And now we're grappling with what to do in midst of our love, admiration, skills in the industry. Again, I don't want to generalize, but I'm assuming that you're a fashion lover if you're listening and are just trying to figure out how to navigate it and how to navigate it sustainably and ethically. But I think it's just a continued resistance and continue learning from each other, continuing to explore different cultures and elements where we can like continue to improve bit by bit. So hopefully we retain that love, we retain that courage to step up and do better in the midst of everything. But it's been such a joy from hearing from your journey, from your story, from your trials and tribulations and everything that you've been going forward with. So I'm kind of curious, where can we find you? I'm low key, or I've stalked you too many times, so maybe someone else will. I don't want to say that. No, no, no. I haven't stalked you.
that's
No.
fine. That's fine. That's fine. Because I
No, I
always
have
like,
because I'm so impressed of what you've done. Like you say, you've worked on your podcast and your newsletter, and I followed you, and you have so many beautiful thoughts. But for those listening who don't know about you, where can we find you, and how can we support your work?
thank you so much. No, first of all, I really do love what you do. Yeah, I don't stalk you per se, but I do pay attention to what you post because I really do. I really do resonate with what you post, and I think it's beautiful. And for me, well, for the English speakers, definitely my Substack. My newsletter is called The World Wears, and that's where I explore, you know, like we've been talking about culture and clothes and how we consume, you know, and how we look at the world through a more cultural lens, and of how we can, you know, build communities through our differences. And I just love celebrating that. And for the Spanish speakers, I would say definitely. Well, on Instagram, I feel like I post in English and Spanish sometimes. So if you want to follow me there too, like it's just my name. It's Ximenamejia, Ximena Mejia, but without the E in the Mejia. I don't know. And I don't know if you can like maybe write it like this, like
Yeah,
somewhere
I'll put
where you're
it
gonna
in the
post.
description. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Because for me, my name is so easy, but then I remember that obviously, like in English, if you see the X, it's not Ximena, it's like Sai, right? Like Saimina. But there and uh, my TikTok's private now because I'm making like a comeback, working on my comeback. So um yeah, but still TikTok and Instagram, but for English, I would say Substack. And I, by the way, I almost forgot. I also debuted like my YouTube channel, and it's a
Yay.
lot about like exploring Mexican fashion and traveling around and just kind of like not just talking about it, but showing it. So if you want to check that out, it's also my name. Everything's my name. And yeah, and it's in Spanish, but I'm working on like English subtitles so that I can share it with more people. But yes, thank you so much for supporting this, and thank you so much for this space. I'm really happy that we finally got to talk because I think we've been following each other for a long while, but
Yeah,
we
it's
haven't
been
had
a
this.
while. No,
Well, I
that's
don't even know.
crazy. It's been like a year, no?
I think so, but I don't remember where I found you. I don't remember. Are
Yeah,
you a
thank you.
remote
I was thinking
ambassador?
about that too when I was making up the questions. I was like, how do I know her? Because I've seen you on everything. I'm like, I low-key think I know her, but I don't remember. And honestly, a lot of the people that have been on my podcast are like that. I'm like, I have no idea. We're just besties. We message each other and then we
Right.
jump on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, I feel like you're a stalker because I don't personally know you, but I vibe.
That's
But
fine.
no,
That's
it's
what
so
social
cool
media.
with like online relationships. I feel like that's how a lot of sustainable fashion people have met and connected. A lot of online spaces don't really exist for this now, but or a lot of in real life spaces don't exist right now for this. But hopefully more people like host clothing swaps, meet each other, connect over this on a very local basis. But honestly, I'm super grateful I just happened upon you on social media. Maybe it was on TikTok. I have loved your TikToks. I know you're in a rebrand right now, but I really love the stuff that you do. So I'm gonna look at
You.
your YouTube. I haven't looked at your
Are you
YouTube.
are you a remake ambassador?
Oh yeah.
Are you? I am. I think that's maybe where we like kind of connect. I don't know. I don't
Girl, I don't
remember
know.
at all. I
No,
don't
I
know,
don't
but
know.
I really do love what you post because you're one of the like the first people that come up, like in the store in my stories, like the whole, like of the list.
Oh.
You're always there because I love it.
Oh.
Love
Thank you,
that.
thank you. Well, I
Oh,
appreciate
thank
you so
you.
much. I love your work, and it was lovely talking to you, and I'll see you in the next one.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
In the blue, for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.